Welcome back. President Trump has tapped a regional airline CEO. His name is Bryan Bedford to lead the Federal Aviation Administration. I want to bring in aviation reporter for Politico, I'll get that right, Oriana Pawlyk. It's great to have you with us, Oriana. So tell us about Mr. Bedford and what he will face if confirmed as the next FAA administrator.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bryan Bedford has been with Republic Airways for roughly 30 years or more. I mean, he started there in the 90s. He's grown the airline substantially. And again, a regional airline supplements other big carriers like Delta, United, American with these smaller regional jets. And as of this moment, I think, everyone is eager to see an FAA administrator in there, considering the FAA is dealing with the first major fatal catastrophe at Ronald Reagan in January. Obviously, we know what happened there, and people want to see that rectified. They want to get answers on what happened there. And so he's going to face some tough questions on how, the air traffic system could see upgrades. We've seen Secretary Sean Duffy, the DOT secretary, talk about this at length as well. So how they're going to work together to rectify some of these issues is going to be a very high priority and of high interest on Capitol Hill. So
the shorthand is ATC, air traffic controllers. It's a system, technological system. It's also personnel. Talk to us about challenges in both spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about aging equipment. You're from Cold War era towers from the 1960s in some cases that really need upgrades and really need people fixing a lot of the equipment that you've heard, again, the secretary talk about floppy disks and things that come online very slowly. These are all piecemeal solutions over time that have just been upgraded slowly, have seen not enough funding in many cases. And on the personnel front, it takes about 2 to 3 years to make a proficient air traffic controller, and they want to get people in the door and applying much faster in order to boost the rate of people to try to make net gains over the next 5 years at least to, combat the shortage of about 3,000 people. That's what they're seeing right now. So really, it's a two-pronged thing going on with upgrading and modernizing that technology, as well as getting the people right in the door. How does
Elon Musk fit into that conversation at the Department of Transportation, at the FAA?
As of right now, we're seeing that his SpaceX Starlink satellites that provide internet, it's being tested by the FAA in certain remote parts of Alaska as well as New Jersey to see whether or not some of that could actually complement some of the systems that they have in other control towers and other places where they manage traffic and look at how airplanes fly in the sky, and whether or not there's a moment where they could fill that gap for some satellite coverage where, notoriously like in Alaska, where there isn't that kind of coverage because they can't have the infrastructure there. So that testing is ongoing. They're going to see whether or not it's going to expand. And you've heard Secretary Sean Duffy again talk about where Elon and his engineers will be coming in and providing that advice, and whether they could take that a little bit further.
And right now, it's advice. No contracts yet, but the conversations and the speculation around that and how it might develop continue, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And you've also seen other, agencies, I believe GSA, General Services Administration, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick talk about how Starlink could have some, play there with broadband and what, the general public can use as well. So it's not just DOT that's interested in what Elon Musk can provide, but yes, the DOT is obviously exploring these issues as well.
And Oriana, forgive me if you don't know this, but I read recently about delays at Ronald Reagan National Airport related to changes that were put into effect after, as you mentioned, the fatal collision over that airport in January. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so that was kind of to be expected a little bit as the investigation into the fatal air crash happened. What was going to happen was air traffic controllers were just going to space out aircraft a little bit more to ensure that everything that was changing so rapidly since the crash was maintained well, and they had enough people eyeing all of these flights going in and out of the airport. And we've also seen since the NTSB preliminary report came out that, one of those helicopter routes is now permanently shut. So again, rapid changes happening, rapid recommendations happening, and, air traffic control is going to adhere to some of these recommendations coming out from the FAA.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Oriana Pawlyk with Politico. Thanks so very, very much.
Thank you.